And now, your daily dose of debate, breaking news, and uncensored views. This is the Michael Medved Show.
And another great day, another great week, in fact, in this greatest nation on God's green earth. And the week starts out with a shakeup because of illness and death of what is going on in the United States Senate. Two of the most important conservative leaders in the U.S. Senate, Mitch McConnell, who for many years had been the Republican leader, the majority leader in the U.S. Senate. He apparently is recovering, which is good news. He sent out a picture of himself with his wife, a former Labor Secretary, Elaine Chao, and his office, which had been completely silent, says he is now recovering in a rehabilitation center from a fall. And there has been no particular specifics about the nature of the fall or how long he is going to be incapacitated for Senate participation. But apparently they're trying to assure the world it won't be long. And Mitch McConnell is out there smiling, wearing a plaid shirt, and seems to be in very good spirits. His colleague, Lindsey Graham, now he is for the ages. He was a friend of this show. I cherish the times he was on the air with us. We'll play some of them as that goes on. He was the senior Republican senator from South Carolina. He died on Saturday, sometime Saturday evening, at the age of 71 after a brief and sudden illness. His office wrote in a statement that they published yesterday, Sunday. In a preliminary report, the Washington, D.C. Medical Examiner's Office found that Graham died of an aortic dissection, that is a tear in the aorta, the main artery carrying blood from the heart. Graham had reported his return from a trip to Ukraine on Saturday, after which emergency workers reportedly responded to a call about somebody experiencing chest pain at Graham's Washington address. We don't know for certain that it was Graham, though it appears very likely that it was. He was elected first to the U.S. Senate in 2002. This is how long he has been in the U.S. Senate. He was elected to the Senate to replace former Senator Strom Thurmond, who was also a former governor of South Carolina, also a former presidential candidate, ran as a Dixiecrat candidate in 1948. So this is a lot of history with that South Carolina Senate seat, and there is more history going to be made on that Senate seat later today, and probably while we are on the air. So we will let you know as soon as we get the information who Senator Graham's successor, at least on a temporary basis, is going to be. The way that works under South Carolina law, the governor of South Carolina, Governor McMaster, who of course is a conservative Republican, gets the right to appoint a temporary senator, at least an interim senator, to take Lindsey Graham's place, because you don't want a state without its proper representation of two members of the U.S. Senate. Under South Carolina law, the governor can immediately appoint a temporary replacement to complete Mr. Graham's Senate term. He was in the process of winning his campaign for re-election. He had already won the Republican nomination. So he is going to Governor McMaster of South Carolina, is going to call a news conference at 4 p.m. today to announce his pick. And President Trump has already posted who he thinks should get that distinction. And Trump says in his Truth Social posting about this under Real Donald Trump, quote, "I recommend to Governor Henry McMaster, Lindsey Graham's wonderful sister, Darlene, to serve as interim senator from the great state of South Carolina. This would be a fabulous tribute to Lindsey, who loved her dearly." President Donald J. Trump. And Lindsey Graham actually did have a very close relationship with his sister. Both of their parents died within 15 months of each other. The father died of a heart attack. The mother died first, leaving Lindsey Graham's sister, Darlene, was only 13 years old. And Graham, when his both parents died, he was 22. So she became an orphan, obviously, with the two parents gone. And Lindsey Graham became her legal guardian when she was 13 and he was 22 to help care for his younger sister. She actually introduced him when he launched his long shot and not very successful presidential race in the 2016 election. That was the election that first elected Donald Trump for his first term. He won the Republican nomination. Obviously, Lindsey Graham did not. They since patched up their rivalry with one another. And in fact, Lindsey Graham became a favorite golfing buddy of President Trump. And Senator Graham was only 71 years old. And I say only because when you compare him to Mitch McConnell, who is now doing his rehab so he can come back to the Senate and finish out his term, which ends in January of this next year, Mitch McConnell is 84. And again, we have people like Senator Grassley, who is the president pro tem of the Senate, who is 90. And there are older members of the Senate. By the way, in terms of the idea of Lindsey Graham's sister, who is Darlene Nordone is her name, Nordone, pardon me, she did not return a message seeking comment. But Senator Tim Scott, who was a friend of Lindsey Graham, and most of the U.S. Senate on both sides of the aisle have said that they had great friendships with Senator Graham and said very kind things about him, which is kind of reassuring to see. Senator Tim Scott, Republican of South Carolina, endorsed Ms. Nordone, that is the sister Darlene, endorsed her appointment as an interim senator to send Tim Scott, the other senator from South Carolina. He said, after speaking with Darlene, there is no one better who understands Lindsey's love for family, our state, and our country. And coming up next, I want to speak a little bit about something else that Senator Graham loved. He loved the U.S. Senate, and he loved his colleagues on both sides, and they loved him back. And the special Republican primary election maybe can do some good in letting people look at the brighter and better sides of Congress. More on Lindsey Graham with some of the highlights of his more memorable appearances in media, which were on this show, on the Michael Medved Show. We will be right back in terms of the next step in the complicated Senate race coming up in South Carolina. We'll be right back. And on the Michael Medved Show, thinking about the loss of Lindsey Graham unexpectedly. He did not have some kind of lingering illness. There appears to have been no kind of fall. This was a complicated aortal part of the aorta, the passage to the heart, which conveys blood throughout the body. There was a tear of some kind. And President Trump said that he spoke to Senator Graham as late as 6 p.m. last night. He had just gotten back from Ukraine, where he had a very successful meeting with President Zelensky. And this is one of the things that I admired most about Lindsey Graham, is at a time when there were many voices in the Republican Party, including the now Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, people who wanted to cut back on our support to Ukraine and indicated that this was some kind of a lost cause. No. That was not the point of view of Lindsey Graham, is he had something in common with his other two members of the three amigos. Meghan McCain, whose father, John McCain, recalled just now that the last of the three amigos is gone. The other two amigos were also great members of the U.S. Senate and almost universally respected by their colleagues on both sides of the aisle. They're all people who ran for president without success, one of whom was a nominee for vice president. That would be Joe Lieberman. And Joe Lieberman, long before anybody had ever heard of John Fetterman, was a Democrat who was, for many Republicans, including me, was my favorite Democratic member of the Congress. Joe Lieberman, John McCain, and Lindsey Graham, all of whom loved the Senate as an institution, and, for instance, wanted to try to preserve the integrity of the U.S. Senate. And the three of them, there's a photograph that Meghan McCain apparently released that shows the three of them, Senator McCain and they were watching the Super Bowl together in 2008 and laughing together. And I think it's worth reading now in its entirety. One of Senator Graham's colleagues in the Senate, and it's emotional. Amy Klobuchar, the senator from Minnesota, Democrat. She says, "It was a shock this morning to find out that my friend, Lindsey Graham, has died. He was a man who loved his work, his country, and his family. And as I added before, he also loved the U.S. Senate as an institution and did his best to protect its power, its influence, and its integrity. He didn't have an easy life growing up, and to me, that explained a lot about him, as well as his devotion to his remaining family members, including his sister, the sister who we say, 'Can you believe we are actually here and doing this?' Lindsey was loyal to friends, and he was loyal to causes. He was willing to work on gnarly issues and take on, at times, political risks for the right reasons. It is fitting that he died shortly after visiting Ukraine, one of those causes he would stand up for through thick and thin. Much will be said in the coming days about his relationships with others, President Trump and John McCain, for instance. But what can't be forgotten is the reason why so many people he worked with, from senators to staff, will mourn his loss. Lindsey had a zest for life, and the Senate that made you want to get to work on a bill with him, or at least debate him. He brought joy to his job. Lindsey Graham was the one who was willing to work with me, when so few would, on helping the Afghan refugees. I remember standing outside of a little phone booth in the Republican cloakroom last year as he spoke with the vice president, holding up a sign that said, "Save the Afghans," And he put the phone on hold and said, okay, I will go on your bill, even if it gets me in trouble. And that idea of save the Afghans, that was to save the Afghans who had risked their lives working with the United States and helping our troops when they were in Afghanistan. There was also his early willingness to lead on big tech bills, including repealing the provision that protects them from consumer suits. But mostly my fond memories of spending time with Lindsey, and we traveled the world with John McCain, was not about the ups and downs of his policy positions. It was about his love for the world, his loyalty to hard causes and his friends, and the pure joy he brought to life. I will miss him. That tribute, eloquent, was circulated by David French, the New York Times columnist and leading conservative. He says, this is a beautiful tribute and a beautiful example of how to appreciate and even admire your political opponents. Rest in peace, Lindsey Graham. And one of the things that comes across so clearly is the reactions to the death, to the loss of Senator Graham. Lindsey Graham had friends on the Democratic Party. He had many friends in the Republican Party, but one of his friends was President Trump, who he's played golf with. We'll hear some of President Trump's reaction later. But he also had a friendship with Joe Biden. Joe Biden issued a statement and said, Jill and I are shocked by the sudden passing of Lindsey Graham. Lindsey and I served together in Congress for over a decade and worked closely on many issues throughout the years. We traveled the world together as members of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. We disagreed often and sometimes loudly. Lindsey and I did agree on the profound importance of public service. Like me, he loved the Senate as an institution, and even with all its flaws and complexities. To his family, his staff, his constituents in South Carolina, and everyone who loved him, Jill and I are keeping you in our prayers. And we will hear some of what President Trump had to say. He had what is perhaps the last phone call, last conversation of Lindsey Graham's life. The reaction, the meaning, the next step in the long process of trying to find a replacement. We will get to all that coming up on the Medved Show. And on the Michael Medved Show, when President Trump got the news in the middle of the night that his friend and one-time adversary had died, Senator Lindsey Graham dying suddenly last night, President Trump shared a remembrance on his Truth Social platform, and he said, Senator Lindsey Graham, one of the greatest people and senators I have ever known, is dead. He was always working and was a true American patriot. And then the president went by phone on NBC and was clearly emotionally shaken by the loss of his friend. This is clip 20.
I got a message about 1 o'clock in the morning from one of the people at his office that he had passed away. I said, I just can't believe it. He was like a member of the family to me. It's very tough, actually. It's amazing.
Mr. President.
He was such an advocate. He was, if he wanted to get something, and, he had a unique ability. He was able to deal with Democrats and Republicans. If I had a problem, a real problem, I wouldn't often ask. But if I had a problem with a Democrat, he could work it out. He was a great politician, actually.
He was. And this is one of my selective occasions where I strongly agree with President Trump. He also went on NBC, President Trump, and added this. This is clip 19.
So what makes it even stranger is that I got a call last night, sometime in the early evening, maybe in the sevens, and he called and he said we're all set for the Save America Act. He was pushing the Save America Act like crazy. He got back, said he just landed from Ukraine. I said that's a long trip to make. He said he sounded a little tired, but perfect, but a little bit tired. I had a right to be, and he was a worker. He was really a worker, but he sounded great actually. But he actually said he was tired, but he wanted to pass the Save America Act, and I said, well, we're going to get it done, Lindsey. We're going to get it done. I'll see you soon. We thought maybe we might even meet today. And then that was it. And that was, very around the time. It couldn't have been much longer. It could have been his last call. I don't know exactly, but I got a message about 1:00 in the morning from one of the people at his office that he had passed away. I said, I just can't believe it.
Okay. And one of the things that happened in his career that was very noteworthy was Senator Graham, who was a ranking member of the Judiciary Committee and for a while was chairman of the Judiciary Committee. His support for the confirmation of a Justice of the Supreme Court, Brett Kavanaugh, was crucial during the Supreme Court confirmation hearing in 2018. And at that time, Democrats had just brought forth a woman named Christine Blasey Ford, and this is in 2018. And she knew Brett Kavanaugh in high school. And she claimed that at some kind of drunken party when they weren't even seniors in high school yet, but they had some drinks in the afternoon, and Christine Blasey Ford accused Brett Kavanaugh of sexually assaulting her, meaning he touched her sweater. And that was in the Bethesda, Maryland, where they were teenagers in 1982. And this, of course, was 36 years later. The U.S. Senate confirmed Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court by a vote of 50-48. And one Democrat, Joe Manchin, actually voted with the Republicans to confirm Kavanaugh. But Graham gave an impassioned speech for Brett Kavanaugh, which was unforgettable for people who follow questions like who's going to be on the Supreme Court. This is clip 25.
This is the most unethical sham since I've been in politics. And if you really wanted to know the truth, you sure as hell wouldn't have done what you've done to this guy. Are you a gang rapist?
No.
I cannot imagine what you and your family have gone through. Boy, y'all want power. God, I hope you never get it. I hope the American people can see through this sham, that you knew about it and you held it. You had no intention of protecting Dr. Ford. None. She's as much of a victim as you are. God, I hate to say it because these have been my friends. But let me tell you, when it comes to this, you're looking for a fair process. You came to the wrong town at the wrong time, my friend. Do you consider this a job interview?
The advice and consent role is like a job interview.
Consider that you've been through a job interview.
I've been through a process of advice and consent under the Constitution.
Would you say you've been through hell?
I've been through hell and then some.
This is not a job interview.
Yeah.
This is hell.
This
is going to destroy the ability of good people to come forward because of this crap. Your high school yearbook. You have interacted with professional women all your life, not one accusation. You're supposed to be Bill Cosby when you're a junior and senior in high school. And all of a sudden you got over it.
Okay, this is, that was him posing questions to Brett Kavanaugh, who has taken his own distinguished and praiseworthy role in the Supreme Court. And again, I think some of the intensity that Senator Graham conveyed made his performance particularly admirable and unforgettable. He appeared on our show in November of 2018. That was after the successful confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh. And here was my introduction of the senator at the time. I praised him particularly for his role in those hearings, which you just heard. And here was Graham's response to that praise. This is clip 30. The late senator. And there's one guy who has been a hero of mine for a long time. He became a hero to many, many millions more conservatives during the Kavanaugh confirmation fight. His name is Lindsey Graham. He is the senior senator from South Carolina. He has been one of the most outstanding leaders in getting the president's judges confirmed and on the bench. And let me start out, Senator Graham. Did you notice today that they took the first class photo for the new Supreme Court with Justice Kavanaugh in the photo? Did you see that one?
I did, and thank you for the nice compliment to your listeners. Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas. They tried to destroy the man's life. They wanted to win too badly. They were willing to change all the rules of the game just to hold the seat open. They lost. Kavanaugh's on the court. If I get to be chairman of the Judiciary Committee, judges and more judges.
Amen to that. Okay, then very shortly thereafter, we actually had two of the three amigos. The three amigos, Joe Lieberman, John McCain, and yes, Lindsey Graham. But two of those three amigos appeared on my show together November 20th, 2015. And at the time, Lindsey Graham was running for president, and his buddy John McCain was out advocating for him. This was right after Trump's Muslim ban comments, and we got Graham to respond to that at the beginning of the show. We'll be pleased to play that for you.
The Michael Medved Show.
Listen.
Nationwide.
Listen.
And around the world at michaelmedved.com.
And listen.
And on the Michael Medved Show, a journey back in time, I can't believe it is more than 10 years ago, but it is. On November 20th, 2015, John McCain, former nominee of the Republican Party for President of the United States, and Lindsey Graham, who was running for his own presidential nomination for 2016, and McCain was out advocating for him. Now, this was right after President Trump, who wasn't president yet, he was one of the Republicans running for president, he had made comments wanting to ban all immigrants to the United States or even visitors to the United States. I believe was part of his idea, who happened to be Muslim, because they were too dangerous to come to this country. And Graham responded to that at the beginning of the show with John McCain alongside him. This is what it sounded like in 2015.
Senator Lindsey Graham, who also happens to be a candidate for President of the United States, and Senator John McCain, who is chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee and is a candidate for re-election to the U.S. Senate in Arizona. Gentlemen, what a great pleasure to speak to both of you.
Well, thanks, Michael. It's good to be with you. I'm up here in New Hampshire with my friend Lindsey Graham, trying to convince the good folks there to give him a look. He's translating for me, and that seems to be helping.
I don't think you need any translation, Senator Graham. Senator, do you want to respond quickly? Do you think it's a good idea to require registration in a special database of all Americans of the Muslim faith?
No, I'm running for president of the United States, where you can come and worship God your way or not at all. That's the whole goal, is to destroy radical Islam that would require us all to bend to one way of worshiping God. The only time you'll get surveilled if I'm president is based on conduct and your behavior. We're in a state of war with radical Islam. We're not fighting a crime, but what we're fighting for is the freedom to worship God. There are 3,500 American Muslims in uniform. Such things are offense to them, their families. What are they fighting for as American Muslims? The same freedoms that you and I enjoy. God bless them. The answer to this problem is to destroy radical Islam on the ground in Syria and Iraq in the form of ISIL.
Okay, that was Senator Graham. And again, he could be very strong on military matters. He is somebody who won a Bronze Star for distinguished service. He had been in the ROTC, Reserve Officer Training Corps, and when he was at the University of South Carolina, and then served for years in the Air Force and then in the National Guard, which is why he won that Bronze Star. One of his lighter, more humorous moments came during his questioning at another Supreme Court confirmation hearing when Elena Kagan was facing confirmation in 2010. Senator Graham asked her how she spent Christmas Day. There is a point to this. It's clip 22.
Or where are you at on Christmas Day?
Senator Graham, that is an undecided legal issue, which, I suppose I should ask exactly what you mean by that. I'm assuming that the question you mean is whether a person who was apprehended in the United States is...
No, I just asked you where you're at on Christmas.
You know, like all Jews, I was probably at a Chinese restaurant.
Great answer. Great answer.
You know, I can almost see that one coming. And I thought,
Me too. So you were celebrating
Senator Schumer explained this to me earlier.
Yeah, he did.
If I might, no other restaurants are open.
Right. You were with your family on Christmas Day at a Chinese restaurant. Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's great. That's what Hanukkah and Christmas is all about.
Well, and again, he didn't get any particular support from any organized body of Chinese restaurants. He was not always that flattering and genial when it came to Trump. I think it's fair to say that their friendship developed when they were running against each other. This is back in 2015 for president. Lindsey Graham had this to say about President Trump's proposed Muslim ban and about President Trump as the source of that ban, proposed ban that never became actuality. This is clip 27.
I want to talk to the Trump supporters for a minute. I don't know who you are, and I don't know why you like this guy. I think what you like about him, he appears to be strong when the rest of us are weak. He's a very successful businessman, and he's going to make everything great. He's going to take all the problems of the world and put them in a box and make your life better. That's what he's selling. Here's what you're buying. He's a race-baiting, xenophobic, religious bigot. He doesn't represent my party. He doesn't represent the values that the men and women who wear the uniform are fighting for. I've been in the Air Force for 33 years. I retired this June.
Okay. And now President Trump has come around to suggest that despite their months and years, frankly, of hostility to one another, that he believes that Lindsey Graham was one of the finest senators and individuals that he had ever met. And that even went together with Lindsey Graham being able to praise Joe Biden as a person, if not as a leader. This is from 2015, clip 24.
If you can't admire Joe Biden as a person, then it's probably you got a problem. You need to do some self-evaluation. Because what's not to like? Here's what I can tell you.
that life can change just like that. Don't take it for granted. Don't take relationships for granted. I called him after Bo died, and he basically said, well, Bo was my soul. We've talked for a long time. He came to my ceremony and said some of the most incredibly heartfelt things that anybody could ever say to me. And he's the nicest person I think I've ever met in politics.
Is that right?
He is as good a man as God ever created.
And then he compared that with his reaction firing back at fellow Senator Bernie Sanders during a 2022 debate over the idea that socialism is the way to go for the American economy. This is clip 17.
America deserves better than this. We can do better than this. But the path charted by Senator Sanders is full-on socialism. Full-on, unequivocal socialism. From cradle to grave. That's not going to fix America. We are not a socialist nation. There is a better way.
Yes, there is a better way. And these are words that need to sink in with the Democratic Party and the rest of the country. Coming up, is America a Christian nation? A columnist for the Washington Post says no, but it's not a secular nation either. Then the question is, how would you define America's religious basis? How is it that so many of the people who founded, organized, built this country were people who adhered to, frankly and unapologetically, Christian values and Christian teachings? And what is it about secular society that America very firmly resists? We'll be speaking coming up to Samuel Goldman, who is an associate professor of humanities at the Hamilton School and a columnist for the Washington Post. He is also the author of 2 books, After Nationalism, Being American in a Divided Age, and God's Country, Christian Zionism in America. We'll be covering the question of, is America a religious country, coming up on the MedVed Show and This Greatest Nation on God's Green Earth.